Good morning and welcome to our webinar. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We're happy to have you here and we're looking forward to a great session on how to leverage the aftermarket to improve customer retention and increase revenue. I will kick things off with a quick intro of our speakers. Our experts today are Matthias Lofstrand and Mauro Bafaldi. Matthias specializes in strategies for implementing aftermarket part solutions and assists companies in implementing such solutions. Based on 15 years of expertise in IT solutions for parts and 25 years in software projects, Matthias has contributed to both strategic perspectives and crucial details in setting goals and setting a solution to work in a business. He is the CEO and founder of Significant. And Mauro Bafaldi, has been the architect of Omnichannel e-commerce solutions in Italy and Scandinavia for over 20 years. He is an intermediary between the most modern technologies and the needs of the sales and the support departments here in Intershop. He's pragmatic and oriented towards practical solutions. He takes care of the success of digital strategies for our Intershop customers. So if you have any questions for either of our experts today at any point, please post them in the chat or the question sections. I'll be monitoring those and we'll work through them all together in our Q&A session at the end of the presentation. On that note, I would go ahead and like to hand things over to Matthias and Mauro. Thanks so much everyone for joining us and hope you have a great time and enjoy and gain some great insights.
Thanks, Rebecca. Okay, I'll take from here and we'll have a quick look at what we are looking today. First part that we want to address is customers in the traditional sense are changing. We discuss about what our interlocutors for customers are becoming. Then we discuss about how to approach them through the whole customer life cycle. So the relationship with a customer doesn't end with the purchase, but it's actually the start. We will see that. And then we discuss about competition. And competition is not between your direct competitors, but we have something called the Amazon effect that we will look a bit into detail. And then what we can learn from it, with lessons that we can learn from the B2C, and given those contexts, those changes in the context, how to address the issues, how to work better through data. And at the end, we'll have also a chapter dedicated to distributors. That is a fundamental chain, a link in the chain to reach our customers, pros and cons, aspects to consider, problems to avoid, an opportunity to take. But let's start from a very, very, very simple slide. Customers are changing. Today, as we speak, the majority of the buyers, the majority of the people that comes on our website to purchase is born after the first commercial smartphone. That's a bit shocking for me because I remember when it happened. But we are working with digital native people, and digital native has a completely different approach to what was the usual buyer in the past. So people below 44 years, that is the majority, and even more for below 34 years, they have a completely different approach with catalogs, with how to communicate people, when, how, and what motivates them. There is a lot of difference nowadays. Digital native are used to use different devices to connect to internet. The telephone is the last resource at all, and they have much more for them. The feeling and the motivation has a much more impact on the economical aspects, and yeah, it's a complete different game. Many of the B2B searches, even still according to Google research, they start on a search engine. So they not go for printed catalog or calling the salesman, but they want to be able to search, find, innovate, and use the telephone as the last resource as possible. And this, of course, has an impact in the way we need to communicate to our customers. If we look at what is the customer journey, so how those customers, those new customers interact with us, we can represent it in this way. So we have a complete customer life cycle where we start from the need, where we communicate to customers, or the customer approach us to understand what our company propose, what is the sector, if we as a company are able to reply to their need. And this is usually done through an institutional website or a communication where we present who we are. But the second step is the research. So, okay, they produce the kind of machine that I like. What exactly I need to use? Do they provide the application that I really need? And it's important to support them in that phase as well. And then after you identify the machine, then you need to identify the correct commercial proposition. So you need to get exactly what parameters do I need to consider, what accessories, what application, what tools, what warranties, what kind of delivery, and so on. And the next step comes in the purchase. The purchase is an experience as well. So once I know what machine do I want, how do I get to formalize the order? What steps, what communication do they need to have with the supplier and internally in order to finalize the purchase? The receive is usually a bit overlooked in terms of communication, but when one good or one machine is received, there are a lot of activities that should start, like getting training, manuals, documentation, following the shipment, invoicing, all those things. Later on, the customer relates with us during the usage of the product, and usage of the product is, of course, the quality of the product, but there are a lot of things that the customer still expects from us. He wants to, from a supplier. He wants to see if the good machine delivers fine, if it's optimized for his job, if it's a good return of investment, if it needs something, and that leads now to the maintain phase, where I need to buy services, spare parts, consumable, and such. And if this experience is consistent, then of course it will lead into a recommendation phase. That means that I liked the experience with the company. I've been follow up all the way, and then if I need to upgrade or to replace a machine, then of course this company, you as a supplier, becomes the preferred way to restart this positive cycle. And this is a way to keep the customer close for the whole life, and even convert the first sales that may be opportunistic to a remunerative and long relationship with the customer. But what we see it's happening on the market is actually this one. Most of the companies provide isolated and separated experience for different phases of the cycle. Of course, everyone has a institutional website where we describe who we are, where we are, but then the experience jumps directly to the purchase phase, and this purchase may not even be digital, but contact one of a sales representative, or here you are the list of our distributors, but there's no support and help in finding out the correct, in guiding the customer to find the right product to purchase. And still, if we talk digitally, then after the purchase, there's a huge gap. You deliver the machine is shipped, and everything goes into accounting, and then basically the customer disappears. We don't know how well the customer is using a machine, if he's happy or not, how much it consumes, what parts of competitors he is using on their machine as a consumables. And the only contact that we get back, if we are lucky, if he is in the maintain or aftermarket phase, when a machine has an issue and or needs to be serviced, and then the customer contacts back the supplier to fix an issue. This, you understand, is completely suboptimal, also for reasons that we're going to talk very in a short. And what we want to communicate, it is extremely important to build the whole customer lifecycle. So don't focus on some parts, but think on behalf of the customer, think what they discuss with your customer, and try to cover all phases. I know into these phases there are distributors, and that is why we have a segment dedicated to that. But it is we will discuss about it. But the important is, as a brand, as a manufacturer company, to present the smoothness and easiest transition to the whole life cycle. And why? Because you have today a new type of competitor that probably you've never heard of. So they are not your direct competitors, but it's the experience that the buyers have on their daily life with B2C. B2C was born, internet B2C or e-commerce B2B was born quite earlier, more than 20 years ago, and it had time to develop much more service and customer-oriented approaches that B2B is still struggling to pick up. And if you consider a buyer, maybe 20 years younger than me, sitting literally at the same desk for job, sharing this desk for his own private life, and the service that he has there, and the experience that he lives into the B2B day, that's a complete different thing. So if you are used to have your car managed by mobile apps, and you have automatic AI involved into your B2C experience, or you can order whatever you want with literally one click, and then you switch back to your job things, and you need to receive a fax and to change drawing by pen and telephone at the customer support, or to the salesman that is busy and need to call again. I mean, the experiences are not really the same, and this introduce a certain level of competition. So those companies raise the bar of the experience of the customer, makes the customer aware that another type of experience is possible, and therefore work against you if you are not up to date. I wanted to do a couple of practical examples to show what B2C buyers, or what your buyers on their private life are used to. I use example for my life, and still I'm kind of late. I'm not a digital native, so that can be even more extreme for digital natives. So let's take an example, streaming music. I assume Spotify is not a competitor of any of you in this call. But why it is a competitor? It's a competitor because Spotify is really good at analyzing and collecting the data, the behavioral data, and propose me only things that are relevant. Spotify has a catalog of millions of parts or music or and audio files. How can it possibly deliver those to me? There is no way I'm able to browse the catalog, right, for millions and millions of files. And in there, Spotify have been very good to collect things with different contexts. So it has things that I use more often, things that I listen to, things that and he proposed me easy access to that. So I have some of the podcasts that I listen, but also in the evening we used to listen stories with my kid, and so he proposed me constantly new stories into the same area. Not only that, but it expands this by pushing me to reach other markets that I'm not really keen to go for myself. So for instance, there is a release radar, so it suggests me music, parts, services that I haven't think about it. And this goes even further by putting together the data for my family and bring it together in a proposal of service. And again, This is maybe even a bit scary or on the personal side if you think on the private life, but if you think this relationship between you as part provider or machine providers and your customer, that's of course a revolution in the way you propose your product. And another example is an operating system for mobile phone that you probably will recognize. And this is literally my screenshot from my mobile phone. And besides personalization, there is automation. So this company is focused on solving problems on my behalf, or letting me think the least as possible, or put the least effort as possible on things that can be automated. And that becomes extremely addictive. So for instance, on the start page, I don't have fixed application, but the telephone recommends me what are more useful, what are more needed, dependent on the context where I am. So if I'm away driving, I see other things. If I am at home, I see other things, depending also if it's day or night or which day of the week, and so on. So I have some parts always available, some parts variable, hooked to other services that I may be interested to, and even in this case, it's 6 o'clock, it's almost bedtime, so my telephone is ready to start the telling a fairy tales to my son, and it's already there. Speaking by that, it's not only context aware, but it automates the historical data. So in this case, it collects automatically all the pictures that I have on mobile phone and create an album with pictures of my son when it was born. And again, those are things that I probably wouldn't have valued. I wouldn't have gone and searched what did I used or purchased or took pictures of 5 years ago. So I can reuse this content and be engaged with the phone thanks to the automation that gets history for me. And that's the same thing that should happen with your machines. And not only it gives me data, but it proposes me data. So in this case, automatically recognize who's in the picture and propose me to share it with my wife, or propose it to take some actions. And that's the same thing that should happen when interacting with a machine, right? It's working fine. You should start thinking about the maintenance. You should start thinking about this part being consumed, and so on and so on. And last but not least, we discussed about context and geolocation and other kind of presence awareness information. This is where my sister works, and the telephone reminds me automatically that when my sister leaves the job, then it's time to have our daily phone call. And again, it solves problems for me. It's not a huge problem, but it's just a commodity, it's just a useful things. And why that? Why those things are needed? You say, okay, if I produce a product with high quality, do I really need those things? And the answer in general is yes, because people are lazy. People are drawn to experiences and companies that makes their life easier. So at the end of the day, if there is a problem of if I need to solve an issue because I need this part delivered as soon as possible, or I need to find the right part in the right way, or on a website I can click on for another supplier, I need to send a fax, or to wait for the office to open, or even it's open but I have a very obnoxious switchboard where I need to, if you want to talk with your technical department, press 1, then of course people is drawn to the simple way. And is, especially for millennials, especially for the new generation, is a huge impact. And in order to do that with this automation, context awareness, then we need data. And I leave the word to Matthias now.
Yeah, thank you, Mauro. And yeah, all this that Mauro went through, that pretty much just tells the expectations and what people think will be relevant also for the aftermarket. And of course, these tech giants, as Mauro showed, they have very, very advanced features. But there are a lot of things that can be done already for a more simple setup, or for a product where you don't have the tech giant budget to work with. And where does it start? Well, of course, it starts with just meeting the expectations. And the very basic expectations, of course, is to do whatever your competitors do. And that would be to engage in the e-commerce of the aftermarket. And maybe you already have done that. But it also comes to handling the delivery well in the aftermarket. So logistics chains and delivery times needs to be short. It needs to be transparent. So it's important that not only it's possible to find information, you need to know, when do I get it? When I get it, what do I do with it? If I order a service and rather have someone come and fix my tool or machine, or if I go to a workshop, explaining why do I do this, why do I need to do this, and present the information to the customer is really, really important. And of course, presenting the products well, and that doesn't only go for the finished goods and the first product, but also for the service parts and the service operations to be carried out. Because if it's presented well so that people understand, you will meet the expectations. Then, of course, maybe you want to do more than that. Not just meet expectations and do what your competitors do. Maybe you want to succeed and even also beat and tackle the competition. And the way to do that is to do what the OEM can do that nobody else can do. You have an information advantage, because you can guarantee the right part with the right machine, and you have the information needed that could add the value to the end user. It could be accessories, it could be tools to do a service, it could be spare parts that should be changed. If you have one spare part you change, maybe you need to do something more, and it's a good idea to do it at the same time. Instructions could be a rich content and so on. We talked a lot about personal pages, and that of course also applies for the aftermarket. You're not so interested to know that people that bought this spare part typically also bought that spare part, because you have no idea if another person had the same product as you have. Instead, you need to get the information that's relevant to you and the product you own. And all this information, you're the only ones that actually can manage and handle. And this is your information advantage, and that should be used to make you a winner in the aftermarket. All this, of course, depends on data. So the solution to all this is to have the data on your product, the right parts for the right machines, of course. But it also goes to more data. These instructions, tips and tricks, manuals, accessories, of course. But the personalization part, that will require to keep track of the install base, which products have actually been delivered. Which serial numbers do you have out there running? What customizations and add-ons do they have? Maybe they've been through a modification throughout the lifetime, adding a bigger compressor or whatever. Could also be real-time information from the machine showing that, okay, maybe it's getting close to the number of running hours where you need to do a service or change something, or a sensor gives an indication that something has to be done. So all this data needs to be handled. So pretty much data, that's the new oil. It's extremely valuable. But it's also important to remember that, yes, the data itself really is not useful. It has to be refined and it has to be handled. Maybe you need to work through where your master data is, where do you get the information, which systems holds the true value for a specific part, for example. Typical situation is also that you get information about a certain service operation from many different systems. One system says one thing, another system says another thing. That becomes extremely confusing. So ensuring that the data is consolidated, maybe stored in one specific place, and definitely aligned with each other is extremely important. And also, of course, presenting to a customer, maybe you need to refine and enrich data, adding nice looking images, some certain aspects that typically does not exist. So the enrichment part is also extremely important. Some of you maybe also adding information to make it easy to Google could be very important. Of course, maybe they're searching and Googling to find the information, then you want to end up at top. So data is what enables you to carry out this personalization. And this in turn will build your customer loyalty. And at the end, that will beat your competition in the aftermarket. But not only, as Mauro was in, it also brings the customer to come back to you, recommend you. And when evaluating a product and at the end also recommending a product to others, it will not only be the product which is recommended, but also the service offering that comes afterwards. So what this really means is that you need to ensure that the customers have access to the data. And now we need to remember also that when having access to data, maybe you communicate directly to the customer. It could also be that you communicate to customers through a value chain where you talk to partners, which in turn talk to your customers. So here we come to how do we ensure that all customers actually get the same information, regardless of how the value chain look like. So here, Mauro, over to you, please.
Thank you. So as we were saying before, and as Matthias said, we need to, customers expect different things. You need better and structured data, consolidated data to exceed the expectation of the customer. And then how do we make this data arrive to the customer? And the most important channel for in the majority of the cases is a network of distributors, and no one wants to get rid of it. It's a really core pillar on our presence on the market. But distributors network have some issues that is worth to mention. So on one side is that there is no control over product information. So when we provide information to the distributor, we can organize and have everything put together in the best way as possible: videos, tips, documentation, manual, upsell, cross-sell, pricing, reasoning, optimization, whatever. But we don't have, usually manufacturer doesn't have control how those information arrive to the final customer. We don't have information to where those information are presented, meaning together with competitors' parts or information, in which context those information are shown, and when they are presented. So we are not even sure that all the material that we make available for a distributor is used and to reach the customer. And speaking about the customer, there is no direct contact with the customer. The distributor usually isolate the manufacturer from the customer. Usually that's a good thing, but you miss some fundamental information. You don't know what your customers are looking for, or you have it reported by the distributor. You don't know when you are not selling, and it's probably even more important to know when you are selling. So you don't have any idea in general. Manufacturers don't have ideas of when customers decides to buy something else, and that's of course a potential. It's a sale loss for you, and maybe many manufacturers are not even aware of that. And last but not least, not having the relationship of what happens on the field, then it's difficult to get an idea of how well your product works. Yeah, you have many ways to collect customer satisfaction and whatever, but the daily relationship is very important to have. And then also what happens, what I see happen for many B2B companies is difficult to expand the markets, because usually companies selling only through a distributor are limited to where, of course, the distribution network exists. And that makes addressing new markets or potential markets very problematic. I mean, you need to set up a distribution network, you need to find the right one, you need to be sure you justify the investment and so on. And yeah, that's a tricky thing to handle. And in this schema, we see a bit, when we talk of distributors, actually it's a very complicated landscape. There are so many different ways your customer is connected to you. We have the distribution network. Distributors can have a dealer network on the territory. They can have service partners like workshop or whatever, and where the customer is interacting. So customer may buy the parts itself in a shop. He can buy it because he has maintenance to a service company that then buys the spare parts or the machine to the distributors that buys from the manufacturer. There are companies that are dedicated to wholesales straight away, so customer buys it straight away, or customer may decide to buy from public marketplaces. And there, even in all those channels, those issues that were reported are very important. You don't know how your data is provided, you don't know how much arrives to the customer through this network. A digital channel, and by digital I think everything from connecting engineering to sales, so the whole process in engineering, build machine data, organize it, have it organized in a PIM, and deliver it to an e-commerce platform that can distribute that to the distributors automatically, have a lot of support. It is a way to support your distribution network to sell more. But why? Because they will get better data quality. They will have, you as a manufacturer can manage who has access to which data, so you can open and close the tabs for sales information or marketing information or configuration information. And if you collaborate tightly, you can even have an immediate distribution. And this is very, very important, because you can propagate your product information in a faster way. And when I say to immediate distribution, think about you're launching a new product on the market. Usually it takes time for the distributors to get it up, to be trained, to learn to sell. But if you have a digital channel, those information arrive seamlessly on the distributor, then you can address them straight away. Or if you have bulletins and technical issues and you need to call back certain machines, you want this information to propagate in a good way, but as fast as possible. Also, if you have data, if you distribute data, then you can provide digital tools for helping your distributor to sell better. So if you have a CPQ system, and if it's available self-service from distributor, they can start the offering cycle in a faster way and get more refined orders. You can push upsell and cross-sell data. If the distributor is lazy, probably doesn't care, or it maybe can suggest competitors. But if you provide an automatic way to deliver upsell and cross-sell, then you're solving problem for the distributor, and he's happy because he doesn't have to do much. And the same thing, if you give easy access to documentation, training, services, is all a way to keep your distributor close and make all those things arrive to your customers and eventually provide a better experience for your final customer. But besides that, there is also another way, and is to put also your brand on the first line. That means, as a manufacturer, open to your direct contact with the customers and be available with your brand. Many says, okay, but how this is possible? It won't work with my distributors. There are ways, and there are ways to bring a win-win-win. So if you provide information on your website, you have a directly a direct control of the level of communication that you provide. There's no company in the world that knows your products best than you. So it's you that should talk about your products. Tell, inform, tell when something new comes in, tell when products are discontinued. You need to connect people to the brand. And speaking to brand, to get people close, your brand should get in the head of the customer. So understand what your customers are looking for, profit from the fact that if you have a machine, you have the first thing that it comes spontaneous to mind is not to look for a distributor, but to go on the site of the actual machine producer, and getting redirected to a phone number to a distributor is not the best experience. And another thing, be in contact with your customers to be able to track what happens to your machines after the sales. We have an example of a company producing lifts or elevators. No, not lifts, sorry, forklifts, right? And they have all the nice information of what happens, where they sold those machines. But after opening a direct portal for the customers, they realized that there was a 30% installed base they were completely unaware of. And that is because the original buyer sold the machine after a few years, and those disappeared, and who bought it went buying compatible spare parts and so on. And by being directly available on the market, it let them get in contact with this big installed base that they didn't realize it was out there. And you don't need to work on at the shoulder of your distributors. Don't need to want behind your distributor. Let your brand channel be in support of your distributors. There are so many examples that I worked with in the past where the shop, the portal, the customer portal is run by the brand. But if I, as a Swedish customer, decide I want a specific part of a service, then I can surely buy on the manufacturer's site, but the delivery will be still handled by the local distributor. What does that mean? Is that it's a win for the customer because he knows that he has both the part from the best place possible to have quality and speed, and the part is correct for my machines. It's a win for the distributor because they have a free sales coming in for a channel that they don't manage. And it's a win for the manufacturer because he gets all the brand recognition, he gets the margin, it keeps the distributor happy, and it doesn't need to care too much about logistics because at the end of the day, it's just delivering to the normal logistic channel to the distributors. So this is an important factor to consider when opening your brand, making it your brand communication. Make it work also for your distributor. And this will allow you to reach faster your customer, as I said before, communicate with new products, upsell, new way of communicating, and will make you able to reach new opportunities. For instance, if you're available on the network, then you can go directly in new markets. You can start the online, purely online approach in new market, test how it works. There's still some investment to be done, but you don't need a manufacturer, a distribution network there. If it goes well, then you have higher margin. You remove one chain from the distribution, and everybody's happy. If it works anyhow, it can be. If it works halfway, then you can be the first footstep to establish your distribution network there. Also, expand your customer base. We have this example for another customer of ours. Put their offering online, make it available online, and they discovered applications for their machines that they didn't have thought of. So company doing completely different things in a completely different sector says, oh, we need a machine to do that. We want to buy your machine because we plan to use it in this way. and without being accessible online, it would never happen. The distributor would have been involved, and the manufacturer probably never heard about that. And last but not least, you are even able to expand your offering by integrating a marketplace solution. I'm not talking selling through a marketplace, but selling everything that is around your brand. So if you sell machines like I don't know, industrial machines, let's take forklifts for instance. If you enable a marketplace on your digital platform, then you are able to sell security clothes, lubricants, consumable parts, all the things that go around the experience of your product. Normally, you wouldn't probably care to try to sell those things because they're off brand and you don't want the logistic to be involved into that. But if you use a marketplace with drop shipping, then you can onboard suppliers, and then your brand, your identity will become not only the one that solves my problem in getting a machine for my warehouse, but for getting most of the things that I need to run my warehouse. And that's a completely different level. And that's also offer you the possibility, if a product works, it works very well, then you can even test and see to bring it into your direct logistic chain. But at least you have a fast way and cheap way to test those products on the market. It's a very long discussion, so I need to summarize it, shorten it up. But these data, this communication, all the information that you have needs to be delivered in the most efficient way to your customers, with whatever channel you like, but needs to get to the customer. But as Matthias said before, data can be processed to bring even more business. Once you have the data and you can be proactive, like serve the customer in the best way you can start to be predictive. And that means start analyzing this data and produce proactive sales. Look, you're using this machine. If you use it into this way, probably within a month, you will need a service. Here is a service package with this local service supplier, with the part that you need, the tool that you need to change the part, the consumable that goes. Maybe you need a new O-ring or a glue or whatever. You package everything and you propose it to your customer. Remember automation before. And that, of course, is a huge added value for the experience of the customer. And again, we are not there only to make people happy. We're there to get money. And the more people is happy, the more probable is buying from us. Last couple of things. This journey or those architecture, right, is a long journey for many company, and to say, okay, it will take a while to get there. The thing is that you will never get there. There's no there to get. Those things change constantly. So the nice way, the good way to do this is to invest in a part of the journey, optimize, increase revenue there, reinvest a part of it, optimize another part, and go on through the whole part of the journey. Because each step of this customer journey has a return for the customer, an economical return from the customer. And so do not think about a huge project that you need to start and it will be finished in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. Start with a step and be in the mindset that you need just to put one step after each other to stay in line with the competition and the way the market changes. Why should you do that instead of buying a new, I don't know, warehouse or a production plant? Or in addition to buy a new warehouse or a production plant, is that whatever investment, here is a generalization, but whatever investment you spend on the physical world has a linear expansion. So if you double your production, you will optimistically double your sales. So every thing that you do in the physical world is directly related. So this is how you put in, this is how you get out. But for the digital sales, this growth is exponential, and that means that if you invest something, the return of investment is much higher than what you put in. If you double your digital service online, or the quality of your experience, you will get more than double of the in return. And if you think about addressing new markets, new type of sector, new form, new channels, new way of sales, this can be driven by relatively smaller investment with a higher curve. Sorry, I spoke a lot. Before getting to the questions, Matthias, you want to sum up all the things that we discussed?
Absolutely. So basically, the message we're trying to send here is the B2B buying behavior is changing depending on how the world is changing. It's important to think of the entire customer cycle. So selling a product also includes selling the service to it. That's how you get the customers to come back. And to achieve that, we will need to look at not only into the product's data, but also the aftermarket service information and data. And by doing so, you can also present whatever is personal to the owner of the machine, and you can stay ahead of your competition. And in doing so, this also opens up the possibility to rethink the relationship with the distribution network, and enables you to get more information and more closer contact with your end users, if that is not already the case, of course. And remember to always do it in many steps. Do a few steps, get the data from the steps, draw conclusions, analyze, optimize, and do another step. So it's a constant work to work with this, because one step is not enough. It could also be too big. So better to take in many steps, analyze, and do it over and over again. So that's a short summary of what we're trying to do. Thank you.
What we want to propose, and what we want to continue this discussion after this today. We will have a Q&A now, but here we discuss the business aspects. In the next talk, we discuss how practically this is meant to work, and so how the company must adapt and change internally, what the IT department or the digital innovation office needs to put in place or to adjust to make to support the process that we discussed. And then we want to invite some of you to a round table beginning of next year in person, if contingency allows it, with some selected people to discuss what has been done by other customers and discuss together what are the practical issues, what you can do for you personally, and discuss those things in person. So, do you have questions, opinions, points to raise about what we discussed today?
So I'm going to jump back in here. We do have a couple questions from the audience. First of all, I'd like to say thank you so much both to Mauro and Matthias for a great session with really interesting, entertaining information here on the aftermarket. So our first question is from Katarina S., who would like to know what about scenarios where users can buy parts and accessories without logging in. How is personalization adapted to such customers or users? Okay, good question.
Yes, because in that case you miss the data. You don't know what exactly who the customer is. But again, if you think at this scenario through the whole process, then it should be the easiest way as possible. If you have a QR code on your machine with the link directly to your customer portal, you search for a serial number. I mean, you need to bring in there are way to identify, to understand, if not the customer, at least what machines we're talking about. And noticeable is the fact that anonymous buyers are probably even more interesting than registered buyers, because that means that is someone you haven't a relationship before, but or you're not aware you had a relationship, but is a user of your products and it's interested in buying from you. So this is even more important. Of course, it has to be declined for the single use case, but is not something to be left out.
Yeah, I think you said it, Mauro.
Yep, perfect, thanks. Then we have another question here come in from the audience. Anke would like to know, what role do apps or other touch points play in the aftermarket?
Could you say it again, please?
What role do apps or other touch points play in the aftermarket? I'm thinking like apps.
Yeah, it could play a quite important role. Of course, it depends on how the apps are used. The trend for the moment seems to be to move away from apps, because it's something that needs to be downloaded on a device. But for certain use cases, it can be quite good, because you have this app for this particular machine, and that will help you to have all the information available in one particular place. So for particular products which are used where you're on the go in some way, then it could be a big advantage. But if it's a piece of equipment which is used not necessarily on the go, but maybe stationary, or where you have access to a laptop or a bigger screen, or more of a factory style product, then maybe it's slightly less useful. So it all depends on the situation, on the end user, if it actually is a burden, or the other way around, really useful.
Yeah, I want to add that this maybe it can be discussed also into the architectural part. But if you stick from a commercial point of view, the different touch points are extremely important. So the app is one specific thing, but if we talk of multiple touch points, I think it's important to have to count on every possible way to reach the customer. So think the impact for many machines, many complex machine, as an embedded computer, an internet connection, and a touch screen or some kind of interface. Think the difference in experience would be if there is a problem, there is an issue, and you could order, or at least start the order process for your spare parts or booking a service right from the car or from the machine. And that's a complete different, again, it's thinking on behalf of looking for solving problems to the customer. So I have a Renault. I hope that there is no one from Renault here and is begging me to book a service, but I need to go and find the dealer and find where it is and so on. But my car knows where I am, knows that it needs a service, knows is connected to internet. So what I wanted is, you need to book a service, click here, and it says, okay, go tomorrow to this workshop, and that's fine. And it's a complete different experience. So I think if we go to the slide where you have a small part of the customer journey hanging, it's wrong to think in terms of customer portal only, or to maintenance or aftermarket portal only. It is again the completeness of the cycle. You need to think to the whole journey and try to identify not only web things, but put on your digital channels, and web is one of the touch points, but there are many others.
All right, thank you. I think that really answers the question pretty well and gives some good perspectives from both. I would say we might have time for one more question, if that's all right for you guys. I know we've got a probably all have packed schedules for the day, but let's take the last one from Jonas B. Who asks, we're moving towards predictive maintenance to have IoT sensors in our machines to track consumption and work cycles. How can I use such a solution to inform my machine user of an upcoming problem, and can we push the parts to be ordered to the customer directly? I think that's
yeah, that's a good one. Of course, it all depends if you can do the analysis and fetch this information. But as soon as you have information ready in a database, it's totally possible to do so. I think it a little bit goes back to what Mauro says. Which way are you communicating this to the customer? If you have an onboard screen on the actual machine, then I think we have the Renault case here, where you actually get information, time to book a service. This is what you need to do. This could be for all kinds of equipment with a built-in screen in some way. If you do not have that, then maybe a push notification to an app could be another way to do it. But then, of course, remember, everybody has different preferences, and a web interface or simple mail could also be a solution in the cases where there are no other ways to communicate with the customer and you still know this information. So I think it's important to remember to use all the channels, and then the customer, depending on the situation, will make their choice or maybe prefer many choices.
I would like to add one thing for the company side as well. We were discussing these things with a company producing cranes, and IoT was managed by the engineering department, and they wanted to communicate to the user that the sensor P27 has a drop of 3 kilonewton per square meter, and it's a very serious thing. What we discussed is, together with the sale, you remember the slide that says data is value, is a new oil, but it needs to be refined. Again, think holistically. Think what does that mean for your customer. So put together sales, marketing, and engineering, and a drop on the pressure on the P27 means, guys, you probably need to change this compressor, or there is a pipe leaking, or something like that. Transform it into a commercial opportunity. So, hey, this is wrong. We want a technician to come there. Hey, this is wrong. You maybe need this spare parts check if this pipe is leaking. So you need to involve the whole company, all the different departments. Doesn't need to be in separated silos, but always work together to see things on the point of view of the customer.
Definitely. All right, thank you. We appreciate it, and it seems like there are no questions and no follow-up questions, so I think you guys did a great job of answering the ones that came in. So perfect. If anyone in the audience has questions moving forward, or any thoughts or feedback, if you're interested in speaking directly with Matthias and Mauro, I'm sure they would be happy to answer them all. And yeah, we're here to support you in your e-commerce and aftermarket goals. So thanks. I'll give it over to you, Mauro.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.